Most people believe that Medicare will take care of all of their healthcare costs in retirement. But here's the problem. Medicare is not free, and choosing the wrong plan could cost you thousands. Hidden premiums, penalties, and coverage gaps could totally blindside people who thought that they were prepared. The truth is, with the right Medicare strategy, you can build your Medicare coverages seamlessly into your overall retirement income plan and make sure that you feel confident about your healthcare coverage in retirement. That's why today I'm sitting down with Alex Seiler. Alex is the president of Precise Insurance Advisors. Alex and his team are specialists when it comes to Medicare. And we had such an interesting conversation. There are so many different ways you can get into the topic of Medicare, but we had a great time discussing Medicare. We have some very important information that I think is going to be helpful. And it's a great idea to have somebody like Alex in your life if you're looking for an educational and informative approach to how you can determine your Medicare coverages in retirement. Check it out. I think the one question that all of my people that are a little bit older would ask is like, how do we get off the Medicare rolls? Because I know there is so much marketing that is targeted out to people that are 65 and older that come in, this time of year. Is it possible to get off the mailing lists, or
No.
this is just where we have to endure?
No. I've sat on many meetings. I sit on some different boards, and the argument is, and this is like what I tell people, in particular this year of all the years, like this is where it's at. Like this is the biggest year we've had in Medicare probably in history when it comes to changes, because typically like this time of year, it's really for prescription drugs and certain types of Medicare plans, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this year's a year where we're like really having to go through everything, because both Medicare Advantage, prescription drugs, and the Medicare subside, they're both taking huge hits. They're both taking huge impacts. So it's one of those things where that marketing this year, it's only going to be noisier.
Oh, really?
Only going to get noisier, and it's only going to get louder.
So I'm going to show my ignorance here, but what are these changes? What are the big changes that are taking place?
So what people like, what we're realizing, what people are, there's a lot happening. It's not just one thing. There's depth of really multiple different triggers. You have, of course, there's politics. There's no surprise today. You turn on the news and the healthcare issues we have in this country are very real. The cost, exposure, things like that's very, very real. I think that's like our biggest thing this year is there's so much happening between politics. There's so much happening between hospitals, the insurer, who will or will, what they won't accept. And then, believe it or not, I mean, I hate to be that guy to say it, but it's the truth. Then we have, it's a kind of a combo of backlog of COVID tied with inflation, where things are starting to break. And so that's like the big thing about the changes this year. And then on top of that, we have a bunch of systematic things that need to change. But then now you tie in, we are in year 2 of like a 7-year stretch or something like that of the boomers coming in, peak people aging into being Medicare eligible. So it's like, got to take care of all these things. So that's the biggest thing with this year, why you're hearing us be very loud, but it is those phone calls, the emails. Like if you have a trusted source like us, honestly, just throw that stuff away.
Right. Well, I think you bring up a great point with like having a trusted source, because a lot of people, I don't think, do have a trusted source. What's been my experience with folks with Medicare is they get bombarded, and it kind of turns into like the search for the right vendor, who's got the best price or the lowest price, and like what are some of the biggest mistakes or misconceptions that people have. So somebody that's looking at Medicare for the first time or relatively new, maybe been on a year or two, and they haven't been around the block, like what are some of the biggest mistakes or misconceptions that you see these people making when it comes to approaching Medicare and Medicare enrollment?
You are Medicare eligible at age 65, unless there's some special circumstances outside of that. But the bulk of people, you're Medicare eligible at age 65. that does not mean, no matter what, that does not mean you have to take your Medicare right away. We've had this discussion multiple times, but it's just like we said yesterday, people are not necessarily retiring at 65.
Right.
I just talked with a client yesterday. She's retiring now and she's 77 years old. You don't have to take Medicare right away as long as you have credible coverage. So people, again, going back to that mail, right? That's the big issue we have. Going back to mailboxes, going back to emails, phone calls. People will read things. It's purposely to try to get them to pick up the phone and call.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Confuse them and pick up the phone and call. But the reality is, as long as you have credible coverage, you don't have to take your Medicare at 65 necessarily.
Right.
And so that'd be a big thing approaching Medicare, because people are retiring. You could probably mention this better than I can, but what? Average retirement right now is what, 70 years old? Something like that?
No, I wouldn't say. I think we're still on the early end of the spectrum. I mean, the most recent research, I think a lot of people, the average retirement age is still probably a little bit younger than 65.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, we're kind of, we're not saying bad things about baby boomers, but you think about just mentally, like how things have been framed for them and the training that they've had throughout their working lives was like, hey, you can claim Social Security as early as 62. A lot of people have been told that they should do that, which I think is a mistake. But 62 kind of becomes an age where the sensors go off. But the big one for a lot of people is age 65, because that's when they know for sure, like, hey, I should be eligible for Medicare now. So the healthcare component isn't so much of a mystery. For those people that are trying to retire in their early 60s and they're not eligible for Medicare yet, that's kind of a riddle that they have to think about. They're like, well, okay, like if I retire, what am I going to do for healthcare? Am I going to try to be on an ACA plan and have a subsidy? Can I even be on an ACA plan and have a subsidy? Do I look at like a MediShare or some type of, sharing program or short-term medical? There's all these things, but they know, like, okay, 65 Medicare. And so that's where I think a lot of people, we're seeing a mix of people that work longer for sure, but 65 is kind of stuck in their minds because they know that the healthcare component is now no longer a mystery. From one of the big things that I think is kind of like this black box for a lot of folks, and I want you to speak to it because you probably could do it in a much more eloquent and concise way than I could. But a lot of people, one of the things that's really become popular in the last few years are these Medicare Advantage plans. And so could you just break down, like, what's the difference between traditional Medicare and a Medicare Advantage, and then maybe give us a little bit of the pros and cons of, or what people need to be looking at as it relates to those two programs?
This is literally what that marketing piece is. And I'm not going to go through this line by line with you today. We can go over this with anybody that ever calls in. But that is such a common question that we have. We call this our pros and cons list of Medicare Supplement versus Medicare Advantage. First off, what I would say about Medicare Advantage is it is very misunderstood, very miseducated, and people actually don't know how it works. Okay.
Right.
That's why when we work with people, one of the things that we offer, we send education materials to clients digitally, right? We're not going to necessarily mail it to them, but we'll send it to them digitally for them just to like keep hold of. Okay. Because what we will do is, you hear about that Medicare and You booklet, and I'm getting your question here, but it's kind of part of the process, right? You hear about that Medicare and You booklet. I have a Medicare 101 that is basically a very easy to read PowerPoint breaking that down. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the thing about Medicare Advantage that is miseducated, and this is where, again, love my carrier partners if they suck, I'll end up listening to this, right? But the problem that clients have when you call Aetna directly, Aetna can only talk about Aetna plans. When you call United Healthcare directly, United Healthcare can only talk about United Healthcare plans. Well, the reality is Medicare Advantage is a PPO HMO network. And if people take a step back and think about it, it's just like when they were employed and they had group coverage. The reason why it's so much more confusing is where before, we would say, hey, Joe Smith, thank you for being an employee. We offer you group health insurance, and it's through Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? You only have one option to choose, and then you have a couple, a high deductible, your different plans, and that's it. That's where Medicare Advantage and that type of insurance, they actually work very similar to one another, very similar. Where it gets confusing is people then are shopping the whole array of what's available out there, right? And it's a lot. The reason why Medicare, and so getting to your question about Medicare Advantage is there's no one size fits all shoe in Medicare.
Right.
Okay. I have people that go in households, partners, spouses that go different directions. Okay. They may start at a Medicare supplement or Medicare Advantage or vice versa, at one point and switch to the other. It's a moving target. And the thing about Medicare Advantage is do an in-depth review. Does your provider offer it? Do you actually understand how the costs work? Have you actually ever been educated how the max out of pocket works? Do you understand how the copays and deductibles work? What specialists are you seeing? So one of the biggest things that I will run into, and believe it or not, this all adds up, is people will have prescriptions, right? Let's get to the prescription drug side. They will have prescriptions, right? I just had this a week ago. It's more common than you think. Hey, Mrs. Smith, let's go over your prescriptions. I always say, bring your tote into the office, right, of your prescriptions. And whether they have 2 or 50 of them, the thing that throws things off is a prescription formulary is all based off of everything you're taking. So we have clients that they only bring in the prescriptions that they're taking every day. And then they'll leave 3 or 4 of them back home that, I need a refill. Well, now they're spending more than they thought they were because they did not bring that, see what I'm saying?
Right.
It is down to the formulary of your prescriptions. It's down to your doctors and your specialists. But I believe we're moving more into a Medicare Advantage world every day. Okay. Now we are agnostic. We're almost like 50-50 underneath our roof. Medicare, Supplement class, Medicare Advantage. Me being from Nebraska, very rural market west of here. 80% of my population, of the state's population's on the very East Coast border, pretty much. Okay. So everything west is very rural, very, very, very rural. That is a heavy Medicare supplement market. They need to have that flexibility.
Right.
When you're in the city, Medicare Advantage is kind of a different story. So that, believe it or not, that's a very short answer to how in depth we've kind of gone.
Yeah, no, that would be, but that's great. Is there, if somebody wanted to get access to this document here, can we make that available to them?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we have our Medicare Supplement versus Medicare Advantage. We also have, we can share those later, but we actually have a nice graphic that explains the Medicare donut hole. That's another big confusion with Medicare. And then also that Medicare 101, we can give that, access that to anybody you'd like.
All right. No, that would be great because I think there's just so much confusion, I should say. And a lot of people they don't know where to go. It's overwhelming because, if you're trying to retire, you need to figure out the healthcare piece, but then you just get bombarded and you don't know who's legit, who knows what they're saying, who's been in business for all of, 18 months trying to sell Medicare, who's been around and established and credible. And I just think it's great for people to be educated because I like to say, I truly believe that most people, if you educate them, they'll make a good decision. They'll make a good decision for themselves. So right now we're getting ready to open up enrollment for people who haven't done this before, what do they need to know about just right now, timing and enrollment and what this next period is going to be?
Yeah. So October 15th through December 7th is that lovely annual enrollment period. I'm sure many folks, by the time this recording gets in front of them, their mailbox, again, going back to that mailbox, will be full. The marketing will be in full swing. And the biggest thing I would say is do a review. Talk with an agent, what I call myself, an independent agent. I represent a bunch of different insurance carriers. We represent all the different insurance products out there. We are truly agnostic when it comes to doing our annual reviews with our clients. Find someone that can actually take a look at all of your true options available to you do a quick review. You'd be shocked how much money people are going to save just by taking a half-hour review. That's about how fast we can get it done, believe it or not, in good timing, right? Do a review. There are a lot of changes happening this year, and more people. There's 32.5 million people on Medicare products today. And we're expecting, I think the number I heard is upwards of 40% of that population will be impacted by change.
Wow. What's the change that's got you concerned?
So provider acceptance, what plans are that your hospital and, who are they in contract with insure? That's something we're seeing a lot of shakeup with that. We're seeing revision of how the product necessarily works. So the drug costs, the copays, adding some deductibles, things like that. It's just a lot of little things that can add up to one big impact is what I would say. So, if you work with someone like us, what we'll do is we reach out to our clients ahead of the meeting. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, can you please fill this out? Right. It's going to give us their basic info, the prescriptions that they take, the doctors that they see. When they send that back to us, we can put together a whole formulary. We get on the phone with them. And like I said, we get done 90% of our meetings done in about a half hour. Of course, if we need to schedule additional time, we will. But just do a quick review.
And make sure you guys meet with a lot of people virtually too, right? So it's like if somebody, like you said, you're in Nebraska, but say somebody in North Carolina or South Carolina wanted to reach out and have you guys give them a review, like you could do that.
Yeah, virtual appointments. I mean, more and more people like virtual appointments anymore. They're in the comfort of their own home. Obviously, we love making personal connections, but just for time, sake of time, we could still meet. There's nothing you to gain or lose. You're not going to lose anything not doing a virtual meeting. So yeah, more and more people do. We meet with them. It's on a secure line.
That's awesome. For people who are, trying to figure out what path that they want to take. One of the things that's always bothered me as a financial planner, and this is totally my own bias showing, is there are a lot of people in your space, in the Medicare space. Like for instance, I don't deal with Medicare because it's just not something that I feel like I have stayed sharp enough to keep as part of my practice. It's very important. And it's something that I think is a critical component to retiring and having a good retirement plan, is making sure you're buttoned up on the healthcare side and you understand how your healthcare situation is going to be working, what plan you have, how it's going to work for you, and all of that. But I don't keep up with all of the nuts and bolts of the changes like you. This is why I have somebody like you where I say, hey, you need to talk to Alex, or we've got Alex, we'll bring him in and help you do a review. But one of the things that has always kind of bothered me, and maybe anyone that's watching this video, we can equip them, is there are a lot of people that are out there that are using Medicare as kind of this lead in to talk about other things, like long-term care, or like annuities, or like life insurance, which all of these things are not necessarily good or bad, but they're not Medicare related. They are extra. And it may not be that the person who's the best for the Medicare is the best person to necessarily talk to you about rolling your IRA dollars into an annuity or buying this long-term care insurance policy. And what's your thoughts on that? I mean, how do you deal with that situation with people?
So it's something that we talked about. I've had a focus working with financial advisors and financial planners for many years now, because, and it's like we're all in the same space without being in the same space. You know what I mean? Like we're all in retirement, but they're completely different animals, right? Like not even in the same planet, right? And so, the thing we do. So I manage all of the trainings for new agents that work within Precise Insurance Advisors, whether it's an employed agent or a brokered agent. And one of the things that I say all the time, and it's very cheesy, is you don't sell Medicare, you educate Medicare. And the reason why is because Medicare, it is an educational insurance. It's a completely different beast. That's what I try to explain to people all the time. It's not like, and I don't mean this in a wrongful way, anything. I just mean it strictly completely different. Medicare is completely different than like home and auto, PNC. It's different than the annuity space. It's different than the life insurance space, right?
Definitely.
Medicare is, there are so many, and the truth about Medicare is, if I truly wanted with a client to teach them A to Z and really nail it down, we would never be able to make a decision, right? And I don't mean that to like scare anybody away, but there's just so many moving pieces to Medicare. And here's the thing, and in the snap of a finger, because a carrier makes a change or it's a new year, everything that we went through shifts up, right? There's always a change that's happening. So Medicare is truly, whether it's when they first get on it or every year when we do our reviews, it's an educational thing. You educate them into their decision, right? You give them the facts, that pros cons sheet, right? You give them the highlights. And at the end of the day, it's like I tell my clients, the answer's in your gut somewhere. Okay, because they'll go, I don't even know what to do, right? I don't know. They both sound good. What should I do? Boom. What are you leaning towards, kind of thing. And so Medicare is something everybody needs, right? Unless you pass away. Let's just call it what it is. Unless you pass away at some point in time, you're going to have to be on Medicare. So when it comes to filling a room, when I talk to advisors, when it comes to filling a room full of people, Medicare is a very consistent way to get it done, because people are turning 65 every day. They need this. You don't have to have a financial planner. You don't have to have life insurance, right? You should. It's important to. But in theory, you don't have to have it. You have to get on Medicare at some point in time. So people need to come get educated. So when you can handle their health care and they trust you there, it's a great foot in the door to then talk to them about everything else you do, and vice versa, right? Your retirees that are retiring at 55, they're not on Medicare, but when they do get to Medicare age, you're managing their money.
Yeah. One of the things, and I'll speak broadly here first and then I'll drill down, but like, I think one of the areas where clients are not served by our industry, and I'm talking about financial services broadly, is that there are so many different specialties, but everybody, there are some areas of crossover. And so there's this concern that people are going to lose clients. So instead of like somebody saying, hey, I'm going to refer my people to Alex for Medicare, they're worried about like Alex taking their clients or taking certain aspects of their business away. So they try to be B- at Medicare just so they don't refer out business, and see, I don't think clients are served that way, but I think it's like, hey, let's find the best person that we can to educate you on Medicare so that you can make a great decision when it comes to that. And then like, I'll speak for me as a planner, like the thing that I always would encourage anybody is, look, if you're talking with somebody about Medicare and they bring up long-term care or life insurance or something like that, and your advisor hasn't covered that, that's always an opportunity to bring your advisor back into the loop, because your advisor may not have the licensing to do certain types of insurance, or they may not have a comfort level where they would welcome the conversation, because that's one of the big things that we're all trying to figure out from the advisory space is like, how do we help people understand the implications of a long-term care event on their retirement or their nest egg? But some people are very well versed in long-term care and they have an area of expertise there. Some people don't. And so to me, it's always like, I feel like clients are much more served like holistically if there's collaboration versus like, well, hey, you go do this over here, and then like, we're only going to do this. Because even if you don't necessarily have the skill set for something, when people talk, when the tax person talks to the advisor and the advisor talks to the insurance people or the Medicare person, and they all know, like, and the advisor knows what the estate planning people are doing, I think clients gives them their best shot at having a great plan, because there's collaboration of a team. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's, it is hard to be a master of all trades, because when you work just in like very complex businesses. And so I do agree, a lot of advisor groups that I work with that are doing the Medicare, what they do is they have their advisors doing that side over here. And then they do have separate insurance agents over here, right? And so the house is taking care of everything, but it's different people within the house applying their skill sets to the same clients. And again, back to your point, collaboration is key. I think I only do the Medicare and ACA, but I work with financial advisors all the time.
Yeah.
I think the depth of trust there is also big as well. When it's all about feedback, right? It's all about trust and feedback. That's also where collaboration can be. And I think that's where clients are lucky to honestly have that, because you're getting different people with their skill sets, all being attention, focused to that single person.
Right. What are your thoughts on one of the big things that we focus on a lot within our practice is our taxes and just the overall implication of taxes over the lifetime of a retirement? When we think about lifetime tax efficiency, not just being, having a really low tax year, but like, how do we have the lowest lifetime tax bill? So we talk about, tax efficient withdrawal strategies. We bring up Roth conversions and things like that. But one of the areas that I have been particularly focused in on is Medicare IRMAA. That's the additional surcharges that come with Medicare and income. And also one of the things, and this is purely speculation, so we'll just keep it at that. But one of the areas that I've been really trying to coach people on, because there's a lot of fear about Social Security and the solvency of Social Security, what's going to happen. But I've been telling people, like, no, actually, where I think we need to be watching is with Medicare and the cost of Medicare creeping up. And I saw a chart the other day that was just like the planned increase in Part B premiums. Like, what are your thoughts on just like where Medicare is going as far as like affordability, Part B premiums, IRMAA, these types of things? Because, Medicare is kind of in a similar situation as Social Security as far as like having some funding issues.
So this is where we go back to the conversation of Medicare Supplement versus Medicare Advantage. There are rules to this that we have to follow. Okay, as agents. There's this lovely area called Centers of Medicaid Medicare Services, right? And they write the rule book. And I'm going to give you kind of a cheesy analogy here, right? You'll realize I'm a sports guy, so you're going to get a lot of it. Okay. And the way to think about Medicare as it is like a sport, like football, like basketball, volleyball, whatever it may be, right? CMS made the game, right? They're the ones that write the rules. They're the ones that put the rule book together. They're the ones that tell you what your options are and how those options work and how they're funded and how you pay for them, okay? The insurance carriers, they're the refs, right? They're the ones out there making sure that agents in the field, whether it's their own employed agents or brokered agents like myself, are following those rules. And then there's the agents like us that are working with the clients, right? We're the ones actually in the field doing what we're supposed to be doing. And this is where, again, in my opinion, what you just said is why Medicare Advantage is becoming more and more popular. When Medicare Advantage was first started, it was really meant for people that didn't have extra income to afford a Medicare supplement premium. They couldn't afford, whether it was a single individual, they couldn't afford an extra $100 a month, right? Consistently. Whether it's a household, they couldn't, $200 and $250 a month just to begin with, right? Not including what your prescription costs were. They couldn't afford the extra income, the extra. That's for those people, those people that just were in that situation. Now it's gotten to the point where Medicare Advantage has been so altered. Again, I'm not necessarily saying I'm pro Medicare Advantage, but this is where I think it is going to our Medicare Advantage world, because most plans are $0 premium. You're not paying anything monthly for it. So coming back to the IRMAA side, it's like I tell clients, before you can even talk to Alex, before you can work with me, our company, anybody, you have to go talk to Uncle Sam basically and get your Part B premium set up. That is a premium you pay every month before you even talk to my side and what we offer you. Okay. Now you put IRMAA on top of it. right? And it's, yeah, we've all seen, I should have that chart. That's actually a good idea. I should create you guys an IRMAA chart. That's more like Medicare thought, with a more like Medicare mindset around it. I should create that because we've all seen like the income brackets, right? And after you reach like, there's a certain percentage it goes up. That has nothing to do with Alex. That has nothing to do with the insurance companies. That's a tax thing. That's a government, Social Security, Medicare mandated thing, right? And so that's why Medicare Advantage comes back, because some people come to us and they go, hey, I'm going to the doctor twice a year, right? Just get checked up. I'm healthy. I take some allergy medicine. I see a doctor twice a year, but they see automatically what they're already paying between their Part B and their IRMAA. And they're going, why would I spend more? What? Medicare supplements, right? Medicare supplements, you have to get a Medicare supplement plan. Then we got to get you a prescription drug plan. And then most clients want some sort of dental plan, right? Well, we're talking probably, it's probably for someone at 65 across the country on average is probably between like $1,800, $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. In premium.
I think that may even be low,
It is getting low, right? There are some massive inflationary costs in the Medicare supplement world right now that we could talk about if you want to. But that's a reality, is people are going, especially in today's world with inflation across the board in life, why spend more than I need to? And that's kind of that mindset. So I think I answered your question, but IRMAA is something that's definitely something to take into heavy account. Those things don't go away. Your Part B, Part D, your IRMAA, all that's before we get you additional coverages. And some people ask, well, then do I even need do I need a Medicare supplement plan? Do I need a Medicare Advantage plan? I always try to stop them. I'm like, whoa. Yes, you want to go either route, because again, Part A and Part B only cover 80% of your health care. Either route you take is going to be far more financially smarter, if you will, than not closing in that 20%.
So, and again showing my ignorance here, but I'm guessing, like, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the IRMAA applies to traditional Medicare. It does not apply to Medicare Advantage.
Well, so it does. I mean, it's Part B premium is what it's to, right?
Correct.
So
okay. So your Part B.
That's besides the point.
Okay.
Right. Medicare supplements are, there's a monthly premium to them. And the big pro to that is you can go anywhere you need to, right?
Right.
You don't have to worry about, does this doctor accept that, this, that, or the other? You're paying your monthly premium and you're covered. You don't have to say another thing about it.
Okay.
Medicare Advantage is a pay for it while you use it kind of thing, right? So copays, out-of-pocket costs, things like that, deductibles. And that's what all applies to your max out-of-pocket. So again, that's all after the fact. That's when we're closing in your 20%, like I say, right?
Okay.
And then IRMAA and Part B, that's a Social Security Medicare thing for you. Talk to Alex.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, real quick, I mean, we've covered a lot, but I would love to hear your thoughts on just some of the inflationary pressures that you guys are seeing and what you're kind of expecting for the road ahead.
Okay, short answer. As you can tell, some of these are long-winded.
That's okay, man. No,
it's a lot, right? This is why
stuff you have to explain,
Well, and this is why it's so important to work with somebody that's just not reading a script. You know what I mean? Work with somebody that's actually like knowledgeable about this and is diving through it. So believe it or not, we're seeing COVID issues, right? Utilization was at an all-time low. One of my good partners in the business, his name's Chris Westfall. He does YouTube video. That's how Senior Savings Network, and he does a lot of YouTube videos, and he works strictly off of facts, data, things like that. He runs an incredible show, and he showed this graphic, and I need to ask him for it. But I mean, utilization was insanely low in 2020, 2021, insanely low. People just were pushing procedures, whatever it may be. Well, now that things are kind of coming back to normal, they're all wanting to get caught up. We have that. Insurance companies were still, like Medicare supplement companies were still charging their monthly premiums the same, right? Call what it is. If people weren't using it, what were they paying for? I don't know, right? That's not I don't sit there and answer that. But it is interesting that we're seeing some pretty massive increases in the Medicare supplement space right now. Massive. We see companies pulling out of the Medicare supplement space because they can't
really
make it work. Oh yeah. I probably have 3 companies that we know of just in the last probably 12 months that have announced that they're no longer in the Medicare space. And then I would say there's another probably handful of companies that are no longer accepting new business.
What do you tell somebody if their Medicare supplement, if they get a letter from their Medicare supplement company saying that their supplement company is exiting the business?
So that's a good question. So Medicare supplements are not privy to, or they're not. I love it that you asked that question. This goes back to the very beginning of your conversation. What is something people need to know, right, about Medicare? Medicare supplements really have nothing to do with the annual enrollment period coming up, October 15th to December 7th. They actually have not, by the rule book, if you will, has nothing to do with it, right? Why do we review so many? Because we're reviewing the prescription drug plan during annual enrollment period. But we consistently do the bulk of our MedSup reviews during Q4. But really, a client can make a change any time of the year. All they have to do is go through underwriting. They can change at whatever point that they want. We just got to go. We have a list of questions we have to ask them, and then we will know kind of if they're going to get it or not. Submit it to the carrier. They do a health check background, and then they come back to us. Hey, this client has or has not been approved. Okay.
But I'll stop you because I think one of the things you just said is a huge point for people because, one of the things that you mentioned earlier is like, hey, when you're 65, you don't have to enroll in Medicare as long as you've had credible coverage. You can continue working and you can go ahead and you can enroll once you actually retire. But there are a lot of people that I don't think get this piece right. And if I don't get it right, you correct me. But one of the things that's a little bit unique about Medicare is if you've been working and you've got health conditions, you've been covered under a plan, but let's say you've had some serious medical conditions. When you initially enroll, Medicare typically gives you a pass, right? Like you can go ahead and they're not going to underwrite you per se, like when you've had credible coverage and you roll onto a plan, but then that's your one like really low risk time to get on a program. But then after that, if you want to switch, that's when the underwriting is going to occur. And so I always tell people is like, this is one of the reasons why I stress you need to be educated, especially if you've had some healthcare issues, so that you make a good decision right out of the gate, because it may not be as easy for some of these folks with pre-X health conditions to switch around and hop from supplement to supplement versus like some of their peers who may be very healthy. They rarely go to the doctor. They may be on one medication, if any. They're going to have a much different experience with underwriting than somebody with like pre-X. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. It is. And again, that comes back to why the annual review is big. So another example, I'm working with a lady who, God bless her, 84 years old, great bill of health outside of this one minor. She had a little minor heart problem, okay, about 6 years ago, okay? And she's taking a baby aspirin for it, and there's one other prescription. Because she just didn't know what she didn't know, and again, that overwhelmingness of marketing that gets people to pretty much go, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't want to talk about it, throw it to the side, right? She's paying like $860 a month for her Medicare supplement plan right now. Outrageous. Insane. Mind you, this lady, when she turned 65, had, a few $1 million in the bank. So she has a Part B premium. She has her IRMAA, and now she's in her 80s paying $860 something a month in her MedSup. Wow. And if she would have just
all in, she's probably well over 1,000, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. After prescription drug plans and all that. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well over that. And so we finally were able to sit down with her and find a company. It wasn't as good as we'd wanted to, but we were able to get her down to like, we got her past some underwriting. A lot of companies want to take her because of this little heart issue, right? That's why it's important to stay on top of it. Just do your half-hour review. I can't stress that enough, right? And we got her down to where she's only spending like $550 now a month. But if we would have got a hold of her well before this heart issue, we could have had her down to like somewhere in like the $280 a month range just by, following the track and getting her where she needed to be. So it's so important to do a review, come back to that. It's so important to do a review. And that's why at the end of the day, it does get to the point where people, they go one path, like a Medicare supplement, and they go, hey, I can't afford this anymore. I'm paying $600 a month for it. We can't get you through underwriting. The only other option is to go on a Medicare Advantage plan, right? Try to find find another way to like supplement it if you can, or look at a different path. And so it's not a one size fits all. And the decision you make today will be different than what you make next year.
Well, it definitely sounds like that those reviews are worth their weight in gold, just because if you could stay on top of things and avoid finding yourself in a situation where you're paying $800, $900 a month for a supplement, it's well worth the time, right?
Yeah.
So last question, and we've kind of touched on it, but just to dive in a little bit more, just based on your background and like what you see and kind of what is going on and with regulatory changes, what's going on with the U.S., budget deficit spending, we're going to have to look at these big programs. We're going to have to look at Social Security and Medicare. I mean, what do you see like on the horizon with Medicare, like potential changes happening, or what do you think that retirees need to be kind of monitoring and preparing themselves for as far as potential, adjustments down the road?
Yeah, I think it's something where, there's no doubt, especially Medicare is heavy in the politics right now. Don't let that be a distraction. Like at the end of the day, it's just noise, right? The Medicare space isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Don't let the outside noise ramp up any sort of like emotion or concern or any question or anything like that. Get a trusted source. Just get somebody, whoever it may be. I'm not saying everybody this has to call me necessarily. Would love to talk with anybody, right? But just someone, whether whoever it may be, just talk with the trusted source. Do your reviews and understand this. Medicare, it's going through, I call it, it's going through like it's a reform right now. Right? That's really what it is. They're making their adjustments, and just stick with your review. Anytime, I'm not saying you have to call us every single day by any stretch, you don't, but try to just keep us updated.
Yes, please call Alex every day. Because
not every day there's people want to talk about their Medicare, you know what I mean? And I get that, but just keep us up to date of anything that maybe changes. Do a review and understand that like it is going to be a moving target and it's not a one size fits all. Just last night, I enrolled a couple. The husband wanted a Medicare supplement due to his existing health conditions going into 65. Right, made all the sense in the world for him too. He's going to have a higher utilization rate than normal. Made all the sense in the world for him. And the wife, healthy as an ox, doesn't really go. She doesn't do anything. She goes to the doctor, does her checkups, and that's about it. And she's got a great bill of health. She wants Medicare Advantage. It's not a one size fits all. The decision you make today is not a permanent one. Talk with somebody that can actually throw out all the options to you of what's available, what's going to work for you, and put you with the right plan and the right company.
Alex, I think our firm, we're definitely going to try and steer people to folks like yourself and your company, because we value the expertise and the educational approach, because we want our people to like be educated so that, like you were just saying, not all couples have to do everything in tandem. Like what may work well and really good for one spouse may be different. And we want people to make sure that they're doing those reviews, because we believe in that as part of the planning process. If somebody wanted to reach out to you directly, like how do they find you?
Yeah, so you can, of course, go to, work through you, right? Work through your company. We like good old email introductions. Email, put Mr. and Mrs. Smith's email on an email intro to us. Make sure we have the best phone number. We'll always respond and then reach out and we want to schedule a meeting. Typically what I do is I want to, have an icebreaker call, as I'd say. call, introduce myself, kind of talk through the process of, what we're, how we do this, right? In terms of the education, in terms of the assessment form, needs analysis, things like that. And then try to get another meeting on the books, run their analysis, and then work with them is really what the process is. We follow up with clients, I'd say the average client, we follow about 2 or 3 times a year before it gets to about right now. And then everybody's going to be contacted right now because of their review. The reason why is because Medicare is kind of a set it and leave it for the most part. I mean, of course, we want to make sure, are there any claims issues happening? Are you having any, whatever, if there's any little hiccups, we're there to help you take those. Other than that, it's really just, we want to check in, make sure you know that we're there. But it's really this time of year that we'll do another review with our clients. And we may go, hey, you're good to go. Don't make a change. Stay right where you're at. Or Mr. and Mrs. Smith, let's take a look at that. So that's what I would say is get us on an email with them. We'll reach out to them, reach out to the clients and make an introduction and keep everybody informed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, dude. This was great. I'm going to make sure that anybody that watches this, if they're getting this on YouTube, there's going to be some resources in the description section. So make sure you check those out. Also, if you want Alex's information, we're gonna respect his privacy and not publish that out for the web. But reach out to our team. We'll make sure we get you connected. If you're looking for Alex to help with Medicare, we can definitely make that connection.